working in Jiu-Jitsu on moving continuously while I'm sparring. And that sounds like it might be easy, but first of all, from a conditioning perspective, it's hard to do for 5 minutes straight. And then second of all, from a mental perspective, it's hard to do because it's very easy to stop and hunker down. And I think especially it happens with beginners. I'm still relatively a beginner. And it definitely happens in competition when I'm more nervous and there's more pressure. But it's very easy to kind of come to a resting point and just like tense everything and try to not allow yourself to be moved. And that's possible both in an inferior position and in a superior position. And when you do that, on the one hand, it makes it harder to, well, it can make it harder to move you. And you can maintain a particular position and not get into a worse position. But it also stops your brain from working. And it's interesting to see how the brain and the body are tied. And it's very easy to get locked into a particular position and not want to move and be afraid to move. And then also when you do that, it stops momentum, and it actually gives the other person a chance to do something to you. So it's a really interesting scenario, and trying to observe my own brain and way of thinking while I'm moving. And just noticing the propensity to want to stop moving. I guess, well, if I take it back to physics, bodies in motion stay in motion, bodies at rest stay at rest. So if you're moving, it's easier to keep moving. If you're staying still, it's harder to start moving again. So anyway, but for me, Jiu-Jitsu is as much mental as it is physical, and in some ways it's even more mental. So the exercise is about keeping my mind supple enough to allow my body to keep moving. Because basically, I stop moving when my brain tells my body, oh, you're tired and you should rest, or like, we don't know what to do anymore, so just stop. And those are understandable reactions from your brain, but they're not necessarily helpful. They might be helpful in like a fight or flight scenario, but in a practice scenario where you're trying to get better and push the limits and kind of experiment with new things, it's not very helpful. It's actually detrimental. So it's really an exercise about keeping the brain out of the way of the body, like basically staying out of your own way. And even small movements can make a difference as long as you just keep the momentum going. And from a pure jiu-jitsu point scoring perspective, like, you might not even be doing yourself any favors. Like, I was doing it today in practice, and I was putting myself in worse positions by continually moving. But the point wasn't, am I in a better position or worse position? The point was, let me see how close I can come to not stopping moving for the entire 5 minute round. And it requires like a flexibility of mind, and also just like not getting attached to any one position, which I think are really useful skills, not just in jiu-jitsu, just in life, right? And then it requires also like that I not pass judgment on myself, because again, I was putting myself in worse positions from a jiu-jitsu perspective. But it takes discipline to keep that negative voice from coming in and saying, what did you do that for? Like, you just put yourself in a worse situation, and then locking up because you're self-critical, right? So I think it's an example of how jiu-jitsu applies to the rest of life, and I think that kind of mental approach is useful everywhere.